Hi everybody, it's Robin, and today we are going to do a information video on betta fish. How to take care of them, a little background information on breeders and things like that. So let's get started. First of all, me and Sarah both have 4 betta fish each, so we have 8 betta fish. Sorry, it's really late, I'm tired. We have 4 betta fish each. They're all boys because it's really hard to find a girl betta fish for some reason where we live. And so we are going to, I guess, talk about that. Do you have anything to say, Sarah? Do you? She has nothing to say, so I guess I'll start. So for background information on betta fish are most breeders keep them in, let's say a 10-gallon tank, and they have a female and a male, and they mate, and they have like 30 babies, most of which depend on, like, betta fish can have between 30 and 100 babies at a time. So if after you get your desired amount of babies from breeding, then you would have to take out the male from the female, or vice versa. The key thing is you will never ever put males together in a tank other than when they're babies, because when they're babies they're not as aggressive as they would be when they're older. So when you can keep female betta fish together, you just have to watch, because
And they have to be, if they're, like, if you go to the pet store and you want female betta fish, try to get them if they're already in the same tank.
Yeah.
It's easier.
Because otherwise then you're going to have to integrate them into the same tank, and that can be just
that could take up to almost 2 years for them to get used
yeah,
to
it can take up to 2 years. It could also be a very traumatic event. It could also be very dangerous to the fish himself, because sometimes other fish will eat the other fish, so you have to be really careful. And you also have to be careful when breeding bettas too, that doesn't happen. Because if you don't get the right male to the right female, and you put them in the same tank, the male will eat the female betta or harm it really badly, and it could die. So it's key and to be important. I guess the other thing is you need to also get a little bit more background history on bettas before you start breeding, because if you start breeding and you've only ever owned one betta and it died 2 weeks within having it, you probably should not become a betta breeder at that point. Now, me and my sister have had bettas since we were 8? Since we were around 8, and we're 15 now. So we pretty much have had our bettas live between 7 and 8. Actually, we had them before we were 8. I've had a betta fish live between grade 3 to grade 9. So, that's 6 years. Or no, that's how many years? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 7 years. That's 7 years for one betta fish, and she was a female. Her name was Midnight. She's the most beautiful female I've ever seen. My sister's first betta fish lasted 6 years, and her name was Angel. And now we have 8 betta fish. We've had one that's lived.
He's 4.
One of them's name is Retro. He's 4 years old. And then we have.
He's the eldest.
He's the eldest, and then we have Lupin, who's
Lupin and Death Eater.
Lupin and Death Eater, who
are
a year, and then
Tiger Lily and Twilight are
Tiger Lily and Twilight are
about
only
2 months.
about 2 months old since we've got them. So I'm assuming they're about a year and a half old. And then I have Godric Gryffindor and Severus Snape and Spider-Man in my room, who are also um, 2 months old or so. Godric Gryffindor is about 3-4 months old. So yeah, that's pretty much what we have. And then we have goldfish who are like 3 years old. So, um, now the average lifespan for a betta fish isn't long. It's usually between 2 and 4 years. But if you take really good care of your fish and you feed them and you clean their tanks and you make sure that they're healthy and you do all the required steps to do that and keep your fish healthy, you will have betta fish that live 7-8 years, maybe even 9. Like we've had fish, we've had fish who have lived up to, not bettas, but in particular, but like guppies and mollies and stuff that have lived up to 10 years. So, you know. And then more background history, I guess, on a betta fish is that um, when breeders breed fish, they usually sell them really young, which should not be done if you're planning on breeding your betta fish and selling them. They should be sold around, I believe, 6 to 7 months old for betta fish. Okay, around a year or so, because then they're full grown and they're, they've got their color. When selling betta fish, their color and their size usually will depend on how much they are. Although, when buying a betta fish, you want to make sure that they have no, what do you call it? They don't look sick. They're not moping around at the bottom of the cup or fishbowl or whatever. Um, because if they are, then they're probably not a healthy fish. Unless you're like me and my sister, who we will turn around and take those fish in and, like help recruit them back to where they should be, and then we keep them. Like, we did that with my latest one. What's his name? No, he's not. It's one in my room. I don't remember his name. I think his name is Salazar Slytherin, even though he's red. He was really moping around and he wasn't really happy. And what sometimes happens is if you put them in a big tank, you need to understand that if you've lived in a cup this big your entire life and you go to a tank this big, it's like moving into a big house. You have to adjust. So what me and my sister did for our fish was we have tanks about this big by about that big, and we put them in there, and then we gradually got the tank bigger and taller to where we have ones like this big by like this big. So we gradually had them placed into bigger tanks so that they wouldn't overstimulate themselves and get sick. Sorry. So yeah, that's pretty much the background and breeding history and buying of betta fish. Now, when betta fish are shipped from breeders to pet stores or places of market, they are pretty much put in baggies this big by about that big and with about that much water. So they don't have very much water, just enough for them to live. And yeah, completely covered and, can't really move and They're put in a box about this big by about that big with packing peanuts and hope they don't die or the water bursts. So, it's a very horrible thing to think that a fish would have to go through that to get into a safe home or something. But that's what some have to go through. So that's pretty much it. Now, when cleaning betta fish tanks, you have to no. When you clean a betta fish tank, you have to make sure that you clean it every week to every second week. If you're gonna clean it every second week, you need to do partial water changes every week to make sure that they're healthy and capable of living. You also need to make sure that when you first get them, that you need to figure out how much they would eat or need to eat, because some betta fish only eat one and some other betta fish eat 6 pellets. Like retro eats like 3, lupin eats like 2, and twilight eats like 7.
He eats one, tiger lily eats seven.
Okay, twilight eats 1, tiger lily eats 7. Spider-Man eats 8, and the rest of them eat like 4 or 5. But how to tell when your betta fish has had enough food is when you